Welcome to the studio, Stefan Bjärkefur. How are you today?
I'm doing good. How are you?
Very good, thank you. Tell us why you're here.
Well, supposedly there's a big thing happening called Conf, and you need some insights in terms of how to benefit from data in the real estate industry.
Yeah.
So I thought I'd actually share a couple of my thoughts.
Okay. And what is it in your background that's makes you have all those insights for us?
I've got 15 plus years of the real estate industry, working as a CEO of a software company, developing multiple solutions of various kinds. I've had the opportunity to follow agents from base root level all the way up to the strategic level. What kind of needs do we have in terms of the services, platforms, and softwares? It's been changing rapidly over the past decade. And just being part of that journey, trying to understand what's happening, it's a challenge. And I think that with all the different kind of developments we've done over the years and with customers across different markets, we've gained a really good insight into that.
The name of your speech today is The Value of Data in the Real Estate Industry. How would you define data? Is that too big of a question?
It's quite big, yeah. So I'm actually going to bring some context in my insights today. So I'll be speaking about the very high level, which is very complicated for some to actually fathom and try to grasp what to do. And then I'm trying to break it down to super simple things that everybody has access to.
Okay, but you are a founder and C-level manager, so you're on a strategic level.
Correct. I try to be there.
Yeah. Okay, we're looking forward to hear what you have to say.
Thank you. Right, so today I'm going to be sharing with you some of my insights into data in the real estate industry. And actually, I'm going to start with the bottom line up front. I'm going to try to provide an overview. And that's the fact that regardless of what kind of technical setup you have or your ability to harvest data, there are learnings to get out of this for the entire real estate industry. And you don't have to be a data analyst in order to find or identify valuable patterns of actionable data. And I'm going to speak about this from a high level, and then we'll go down to some basic examples. And to start off with a high level, there is a problem that we've identified across all markets, basically, and all customers that we're working with. And it's the fact that data, by definition, as it is today, is scattered. And that means that data is actually divided over multiple data points across multiple services, making it very difficult for most to understand where to start, what kind of data to aggregate, how to align it, how to understand it. And just to give you some kind of reference to that, we've got customers across multiple markets, and we've seen for the past 10 years how the technical infrastructure has just been growing. The number of services and platforms we're using today is often above 20. That says something about the complexity that you need to address. And I'm going to try to paint you a picture. Take your website. As an example, it's the absolute most strategical asset that you have. This is where you're building your brand. This is where you're converting inbounds to business opportunities. You're running a lot of professional marketing programs across different channels, and everything is pointing back to the same place, hopefully, and that's your website. And just generating a huge amount of data throughout those different programs also creates a responsibility or an opportunity to actually manage that in a new way or a better way. So think about what happens on your website today. You've got a lot of different visitors. You have your forms converting inbounds into a business opportunity, going all the way down to an agent. But question is, are you getting the minimum amount of information with you? As is, where did it come from? Who is it that I'm supposed to be contacting? What's the purpose, etc.? Or are you actually reaping the benefits of having access to a much wider information portfolio from the website? And most often the case is that you are not. So basically, there is a whole online behavior. It's a huge pool of data that we can actually use in different ways to validate that business potential and navigate where you should go next, thus increasing conversion, thus increasing your performance. So just connecting it with your CRM software or your lead management software, your sales engine, and adding the right data down to it is key to actually get something out of it. And put a new level on top of that. I'm pretty sure that most of you have some kind of CRM. And in some cases, you probably also have a property management software. It might be identical, the same one. It might be different. Sometimes it's even 3 or 4 different solutions. But what my point is that you have a property management software running the entire transaction selling a property. And you've got so many key events and key points of data throughout that process that you need to take into consideration in the validation process and the sales process. So the next question would be, are you actually leveraging data from your property management software when you're doing your sales and marketing? And once again, I'm afraid that the most common answer that I'm getting back is that no, we are getting the minimum amount of data points to be able to connect it from the first physical or digital contact down to the actual transaction. And that's a good case because that gives you an ROI, but it's not a good enough case because you can't navigate your sales and marketing incentives. So what I'm trying to picture now is that what we want to do is to build a 360 customer image, which is filled with data from all of these different kind of services and the actual transaction process in order to maximize and build our user experience. Because the single most important point of knowledge will be that 360 customer image. This is where you start to automate your sales processes. This is where you start to increase your user experience. This is where you get your insights in how to train your agents. So it's just vastly important. And what we can see is that most customers are struggling with this. And it's a rather complicated question. I wish I had a simple answer, but I'm afraid there is none. Because it demands a strategical thinking, a long-term plan in order to work with data management. You need to think about this from the right aspect. You need to integrate and sync data points of your interest to build that 360 customer image. And I'm going to give you one advice, and that is the fact that over the past 10, 15 years, it's a very clear indicator of who's running the development fastest. And we can see that the strongest drivers without competition is always marketing and sales. So I suggest piggyback on 1 or 2 of your already strategical partners within marketing or sales, set the scenario, set the goals, and lay out a plan for data management across the future. And that way you can start getting down to a point of creating that 360 customer image if you don't already have it. I'm going to bring it down a notch now, because now this was very high level. So let's try to bring it down to something which is more practical, because I believe that all of our customers have something that they can learn from. You have access to data which you can benefit from and develop your existing business. So I'm going to show you a couple of slides. And the first one is, once again, it's straightforward, but understanding your data is key to leveraging your data. And I actually can't emphasize that enough, because if you're asking the wrong questions, you will be getting the wrong answers. And just being able to actually understand what you want to get out of it, that's the only way for you to get some kind of actionable insights and affect your performance. So I'm going to give you a couple of examples. And one thing that I want to talk about first is the common mistake of trying to find patterns in the data you have access to instead of putting the emphasis on the questions. Because the danger is that you're making the wrong assumptions. So instead of just staring at the data in front of you, start looking at the gaps. Start looking at what we refer to as a white space analysis. What data are we actually missing in order to respond to the questions we want to ask? And is there a way of putting context on top of that to get further more insights? So this case is about identifying that white space analysis. And I'm going to be talking about a customer using an online meeting scheduler that we've been provided for a number of years, basically just enabling your online visitors to schedule a meeting with your agent without having a physical or telephone contact, email contact. We're using empty gaps in the calendar or predefined time slots. It really doesn't matter. There's different ways of doing it. But from our perspective, we've always tried to understand how is it changing? How is the business changing? How's the online behavior changing? What kind of insights can we get out of it? And that's done through interviews and surveys and also looking at the data. One of our customers did their own analysis. And what they did was that they actually brought forward this slide. It clearly demonstrates for you the number of meetings on specific weekdays. The task was easy. They wanted to maximize this online scheduling assistant that they had. They wanted to drive more meetings into it. They wanted to see the patterns of how it's being used today. And they presented this graph. It's straightforward. You can see that Tuesday to Friday, we have the most activity. Wednesday is being the top. So needless to say, let's increase availability across weekdays, drive campaigns towards weekdays to maximize the number of online scheduled meetings. Now, if you look at it that way, it looks accurate, but they were asking the wrong questions. And I would like to reverse that question in order to get the right conclusion. And the fact is that instead of just looking at weekdays, we wanted to look at the weekends. So we know that we've got lots of meetings on weekdays, but why don't we have lots of meetings on the weekends? And we looked at this graph instead, adding the available time slots. So you can see now the number of meetings scheduled online. You can see the number of available time slots. And it becomes quite apparent that, well, the available time slots are when agents are most normally put them in their own calendar, which is weekdays, and they don't put it in weekdays. But that doesn't say that that's not what the online visitors actually are asking for. So adding this slide, now suddenly it becomes obvious that the conclusion was wrong, because we can see now that the ratio between scheduled meetings and available time slots is almost 100%. So every single time slot put on a weekend was up for grabs in an instant by visitors of the webpage. So instead of having the old recommendation, they released a new recommendation and incentives internally within the customer, and they arranged for new marketing programs driving traffic on weekends for it. So this is one conclusion. This is one very easy accessible data that I think that most have. You probably have performance data, conversion statistics for your agents, like online meetings like this, number of visitors per viewings. You've got a bunch of data, which is within arm's reach. You can just grab out, look at it, ask the right questions, and see if there are some learnings you can find. I'm going to go to another example in this time. And once again, understanding your data is key. That's the only way to leverage your data. So in order to find the right conclusion, sometimes we need to add context. That's exactly what we did in the first scenario. We had some information. We noticed that it was the wrong information because we were looking at the wrong set of questions. So we reversed the questions and then we added data on top of that as a context. So our question is, can we do that again? Can we do that with something else? So in this case, we wanted to improve sales meetings or sales inspections conversion rates. Really simple. My agent is performing 20 meetings per month. He's closing 8. I want him to close 12. What should we do? Okay, so if you're running a large company, you have an immense amount of data. If it's a small company, you have less data. Nevertheless, you can still identify the same trends. So we started out with a pretty basic scenario. We took a time aspect, once again, not weekdays, but in this case, hours. So we added the number of meetings conducted throughout the day on the respective time period. And once again, it gives you a very clear picture. When are the meetings actually occurring? What time of day? It doesn't really give me any insights. It only shows me when and how these meetings are being held. So we wanted to add some context to this because we're looking for the conversion rates. I wanted to add the conversion rates to see if there are any learnings that we can get out of it. And as you can see, the timing of the meeting has not only just a small impact, it's got a huge impact. We can say that we've got almost double the chance of getting that business deal if we take the meeting 8 a.m. in the morning instead of having it in the middle of the day. And that's something which is worth discussing because it's got an immense impact if you use this information in the right way. But now having this data, we also needed to understand why. Why is this happening? And we did so by talking to the agents, asking them questions. Okay, so how do you experience this? Why are you converting more meetings at this time, etc.? We were also asking the customers, what were the biggest drivers behind this? Why did you actually close with this agent? And we developed a theory which is still aligned and it's still accurate. And that is that the more uncomfortable time, the higher pre-qualification took place before the meeting. So what I'm saying is that if you are to take a meeting at 8 a.m. or 10 p.m. or 9 p.m., then you need to make sure that this is actually going to be worth it. So from an agent perspective, we noticed that they were very selective in accepting meetings on those time frames, and they did so only when they knew that they had a chance of actually closing that deal on spot that day. Naturally, there's a lot of seasonal deviances because living in Sweden as I do, 10 p.m. it's going to be pitch black in the winter, so that's an impossible mission. But nevertheless, across a year, looking at the data, this is what we identified. The other side of this is also to look at the potential seller. So why are they accepting agents at uncomfortable times? And basically it's the same reason, because they appreciate the effort of an agent going out of his way to meet on my terms. And that makes a huge change. So both of these two examples are giving us insights in terms of how we can drive meetings online at what times and what days, how we can increase conversion rates by looking at the times for the meetings. There's obviously more to it, but nevertheless, it's quite important to realize that we just took a couple of really simple data sets. We asked the right questions and we get some learnings out of it. Now, what you do with it is going to be very much up to the strategy that you develop inside your own company. So, unfortunately, not everything is this simple. I wish it was, but as we started out, there's a really complex environment with 20 plus different services that you need to align. And even though you want to, sometimes it is very difficult. And to be honest, a couple of pieces of a puzzle doesn't provide you with the full picture, and that's really an issue from case to case. So I will repeat my advice, piggyback on a marketing or sales engine with access to benchmarking data with previous experience of doing these kind of analysis to be able to identify patterns inside your own company. So if you haven't already done it, I suggest that you start thinking about your own data management strategy. How are you going to benefit from that data in the future? So thank you very much for having me.
Thank you very much, Stefan. It sounds like you've done that before.
I have, but insights are always changing. So it's super interesting just to follow what happens in the industry.
Can I ask you, is it even possible to run a real estate agency without a deep understanding of the data?
On a local level, definitely. So, I mean, we can see that it's happening, still happening. It's going to keep happening for some time. But if you intend to run a larger brand, nationwide brand, a modern real estate agency, there is no choice, basically. If you haven't started already, you need to start now, because the shift towards digital have been going rapidly for the past couple of years, and it's just the pace is just increasing.
But I can tell in many other industries that, you know, it's also a necessity that basically every person within the organization has, you know, this type of knowledge or at least an understanding of what they don't understand. But what's your image of that?
Actually, that's a really good question. And no, being a real estate agent, of course, you don't need to be a digital mastermind, but you need to be part of an organization that actually does understand the challenges, and an organization that is building the brand and creating the opportunities and tools you need as an agent. And to be fair, we have seen a lot of new brands appear over the past 5 years, and they've got one thing in common, basically all of them. They're over-investing in marketing. They're using the most modern tech stacks. They've created what I'm referring to as a 360 customer image. And we can see that automation is taking a big part of that process. So being an agent inside a company like that, you have a benefit, because that means you can actually do what you do best, focus on sales, and then you have really professional, smart people around you to give you the opportunities and all the benefits aside from that.
Do you feel that overall your feel for are real estate agents and also agencies, are they willing to change and make this transformation and willing to learn more about this process?
But definitely yes. Okay. But of course it's every market is different. And that's all. That's a separate session if we're going to be talking about the differences from one to the next market. But as soon as you realize where, in terms of maturity, the respective market is lying, then you can navigate that. But the willingness to change I'd say definitely so. And it also comes without question, because their customers, new generations, of course, they're shifting towards it whether you want it or not. So you can accept the change and you can go with it, but it's going to be very difficult to fight it.
You mentioned that the data and the value of the data is constantly changing, and I understand that this is a very broad question, but do you have any insightful thing to say about the cookie death? Everything is happening at the same time. We have an Apple update, which is quite a lot of things happening for advertisers in terms of that, and also the tracking possibilities on Facebook, for instance. Do you have any insights on those very big 3 questions?
Once again, it's going to be a big session, but naturally, when GDPR came into place, that was a game changer. And now with the cookie death, which is not really death, but nevertheless, it changes the way the playbook needs to be working. We need to do things differently, but it also increases the importance of actually having this data set under control. So what we can see now that needs to happen to a bigger extent is that you need to benefit from your actual CRM database. You can't align completely on Facebook. You can't align yourself completely on just your web page. You need to connect the dots together with them to get insights from all levels. Because we've got loads of data of our customers throughout the entire transaction process, throughout the entire sales funnel, and that's a process where we don't break any laws. We're working with them, together with them, using digital tools, creating insights that we can act upon. And just connecting those 2 dots is going to become even more important. So I do believe in the cookie death from the aspect of, yes, it's happening, but it's not going to destroy anything. It's rather going to build something. So what we're getting at now in the next stage is going to be a more connected reality between the different platforms.
Yeah, I like your attitude towards this, because I can't help but thinking about the music industry and how unwilling, at least from the outside, how unwilling they were to change. And I feel you have a very positive attitude towards all these massive changes. So
it's the only thing we can do, embrace it. I mean, it's a fact. This is
think
happening.
That's a very good
we need
learning.
to deal with it. We need to be better than we were before. And we need to think one step ahead. So once again, the connectivity now, it's going to be crucial.
Yeah. Thank you so much. Very valuable insights, I think. Thank you for today.
Thank you for having me.
So also stay online, of course, for the next session. We have a panel discussion where we talk about more of a local expertise versus a national brand. So stay online. Hi and welcome. For our next session, we have a panel discussion where we're going to discuss local expertise and a strong national brand at the same time. Lucky me that I have 4 experts to discuss this with, because I really need that today. Welcome, the panel. Hi, guys. How are you today?
Very good.
Very good, thank you.
Oh, perfect. I'm going to ask you to introduce yourselves a little bit so we get a feel for who you are and also where you're calling in from. So let's start with Nick Neal.
Okay, hi there. So as you say, my name's Nick and I'm the managing director of a company called Ewemove in the UK, which is a national franchised agency brand. We're based in the north of England, myself in York, which is about 2 hours north of London. And we've grown our business from 2014 from a brand new startup to now having about 170 franchised agencies all across the UK with an aspiration to grow to 400. So we've still got lots more work to do ahead of us.
Oh, amazing. And what about Nick Moir? Is that right? No?
That's absolutely perfect. Hi, I'm Nick. I've been working for a company called Andrews for 15 years. Andrews is a 56 branch office business across the south of the UK and has been running since 1946. And I look after their marketing, the digital experience and contact center.
Okay, perfect. So loving that we have 2 Nick from UK. And then we have Leanne. Welcome to the studio.
Hey, thanks for having me. So I'm Leanne Pilkington. I am the CEO of Laing+Simmons, which is a franchise organisation based here in Sydney, Australia. I've been with the brand for 26 years and earlier this year organised a buyout. So I'm now one of the owners of the brand, and I'm also the current president of the Real Estate Institute of New South Wales.
And Douglas, also from Australia.
Yes, well, I reside in Australia, but originally from the UK. So I'm not sure which side of the fence I'm going to sit on this debate. But my name's Doug Driscoll. I'm the CEO and owner of Starr Partners. Like Leanne, we're based in Sydney, and we have 30 offices across New South Wales.
Okay. So you're all very welcome. The topic of today is marrying the importance of local expertise with a strong national brand. And I really hope you can help me shine some light on that. So can we start with Nick Neal? Do you think that a local expertise and a strong national brand complement each other, and why?
Well, they absolutely do, and certainly in real estate. So, for example, people who are choosing an estate agent firstly need to trust the brand that they're dealing with. So the bigger the brand and the more well-known that brand is, then arguably the more trust and confidence they have in that brand. But that comes to nothing really if the individual agent who goes to sit on their sofa in the front room of their house to talk to them about selling their house doesn't also inspire confidence, and those individuals need to know information about the local schools and where the kids' park is, sports facilities, all of that micro local information that somebody needs to have, again, so they as an individual can also inspire confidence in that potential vendor or seller. So the brand has a big job of work to do to really get those agents through the door of a home. But when the agent is through the door of a home, it's very much down to that individual to bring to the party and the conversation the hyper-local information that they need to enable them to do the job that the vendor wants them to do, which is to sell the house in the right sort of time frame at the best price they can.
Do you think that there could be a risk for a national brand to invest too much in local expertise and presence?
No, I don't think so. I think certainly in the UK, property selling is very much about people moving within local towns. There is, people will move with job mobility out of cities to other locations and vice versa. But the majority of moves are relatively local. So having the individual operate in a kind of micro territory is really quite important. And that makes their business more effective because they come known as the expert in that local area.
But Nick, it's also really important when you're seeing people move, because certainly COVID times, right, we're seeing globally people moving out of cities into regional areas, and moving from, for example, Sydney to the north coast of New South Wales, being able to move and still know the brand that you're dealing with up in the different areas, I think is a really important thing for people as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's where the national brand plays to the strength of being more widely known right across the country. So definitely so.
Douglas, you're managing 30 offices. How do you handle the tension between the local office and a national brand in digital space?
I certainly think from a digital sense, I mean, obviously that's ubiquitous, right? So I don't think that digital has any sort of geographical boundaries at all, quite frankly. But in regards to, our network, all the offices are within quite close proximity of each other. So obviously what we need to do is promote referrals and word of mouth referrals amongst the offices themselves. I think, and that's key and critical, because otherwise what are the genuine benefits other than just a name above the door of having or being part of a large brand? So I think, the harmonious relationship between those offices, and the advantage being that obviously you can get more buyers exposed to your property, I think is key. And part of that obviously is the digital strategy as well, of course.
But has the digital development changed kind of this work and made it easier or even more difficult to handle the local versus the national brand?
I don't think it makes any difference, to be honest. Obviously, an estate agent's role fundamentally at the very core remains the same. And I certainly think that the digital space has certainly enhanced and helped what we've done in most instances. But in regards to, the local national debate, I don't think it has a great deal of influence or sway, quite frankly.
I think going back to... I think going back to Nick's point about trust earlier, it's very easy to target locally now in a digital sense, but in order to maintain that trust, it has to be authentic. So you can't just put out local ads for the sake of it. They have to represent that local community, the local properties and the local people and the local lifestyles. Otherwise, your digital advertising might be localized by geography, but it becomes inauthentic and it breaks down that trust.
I think actually just on that point, that is a good point, because I think as an industry, what we're doing is we're trying to concentrate on how to do social opposed to how to be social. So I think you're right. Being immersed in your local community is absolutely critical. And I think some agencies perhaps are now overly reliant on the digital space, whereas they need to get back boots on the ground and actually immerse themselves in the community and actually help out and be seen and be known. I mean, that's part and parcel, isn't it?
So,
yeah.
Leanne,
are you finding though that the reliance on the digital space has kind of reduced borders, so people are selling property and listing property much further away from their office than they were, maybe 5 years ago?
Well, yes, we are. We're certainly seeing that in Sydney, aren't we, Leanne? But I guess part of the problem there, and again, part of the advantages of being a part of a bigger organisation, a national brand, is the ability to have someone that you can rely on to refer that business to. And I'm sure you're the same as us, Leanne, and I'm sure both Nick's are the same in their marketplaces. I think it's actually better to refer the business to the local expert being the key word there, because in an upward market with a tailwind, anyone can sell anything anywhere, but can they get the best result? And I think, as I said, the local expert is most likely to get the best result. And if you've got someone you can refer that business to that's part of the same brand, then why wouldn't you do it? Why would you try to be selling something 10, 15 kilometers away? It makes no sense to me. So I think that's one advantage of having a network, the fact that you can refer with a great deal of confidence.
Yeah, and we operate on the basis of very, very tight and defined boundaries and territories, which are quite small in actual fact. So we don't want people selling miles and miles outside of their territory, because one of the things we do as part of our proposition is we actually go and host all of those viewings. So, of course, you can't be doing that if you've got a large geography to travel. So handing it over to somebody local within the network certainly makes sense. But if you go back to the digital thing about... does digital make any difference to selling a property and engaging with a buyer? And I think it absolutely does, because if you go back to pre-internet days, the job of the skilled agent was to have a buyer list and really work those local buyers to try and sell a property. But of course, that doesn't apply anymore because buyers can find you through digital channels. And as long as you are there to actually engage with them 24/7, as we do through the phone, web chat, and various other channels, then you can actually secure that buyer a viewing slot, which you wouldn't have been able to do pre the kind of internet, or certainly pre-Rightmove days in the UK. So I think the digital space has changed fundamentally that relationship between agents and buyers. Not quite so much sellers, but absolutely with buyers.
Could we go back a little bit to local expertise versus the national brand again, and ask you, Leanne, could you further elaborate on how to deliver this sense of personal experience and versus the national brand? Are there any difficulties, or is this only a good thing?
Well, of course, I'm going to say it's a good thing, right? It's what I do for a living. But we certainly find that real estate agents are great at listing and selling property. And if they can leave everything else to their brand to take care of, the consistency, the marketing, the technology, all of that sort of thing, it means that they're letting experts in that space do the work, which is better for everybody in the long run. And as Doug said, it's incredibly important for agents to be part of the community, and it's even more so. We're seeing the really successful agents these days are embedded in their local communities, and it's not enough just to sponsor the local soccer team or football team, I should say. It's about actually participating. It's about being there, being trusted advisors and being part of everything that's going on in that local community. And agents that are aligned with a national brand have got more time on their hands to do the things that really matter in their business and their community, because they've got people like all of us on the screen looking after everything else for them.
Could you, as a panel, discuss the differences between the two markets where you work? I mean, are there any major differences that you can learn from Australia versus the UK?
I think I could pick up Nick's point that our territories are very, very small. And we've not seen a huge change in geographic spread of a territory over the last few years. One of my colleagues actually recently checked, and we do about 80% of our transactions within a mile and a half of the physical office space still. Now, there is some growth at the fringes, but in the UK, where we're very densely packed and people's moves do tend to be very, very local. The other interesting thing that we're seeing at the moment, actually, I would disagree with Nick slightly on another point, that whilst the digital experience has made it easier for buyers, a lot of our business is about nurturing the buyers. People spend such a long time thinking about property transactions now. Some people will tell you it's from the point they've moved into a new house, they start thinking about their next house. So actually a lot of our buyers are obtained from nurturing those people in the community, understanding their needs as they develop over time, and finding them literally the next move before they've started thinking about it.
Are you finding people are moving further away now due to COVID, or they're still only moving very close?
There are some big moves out of places like London. We've seen that shifted the market hugely in places like Bath, where I live, which is an hour and a half by train outside of London. Nobody locally can get a look into the property market because everyone's coming out of London with big London money. That's even moving into the villages. It's in the small town Keynothe, where our head office is based. But that's a bit of a one-time experience. Actually, within those communities, there isn't the same level of growth. It's mostly people coming out of London, we're finding.
Yeah, interesting.
Could you also, you have a lot to say about the market as it is right now. If we look into the future, like 10 years from now, where do you think we are in terms of mainly what digital will do to this the development?
Well, I don't know, 10 years is a long way out. I think one thing we've learned from lockdown and COVID is the fact that viewers and sellers are both willing to engage in remote viewings and video tours and various things like that. So I think people will always prefer and want, of course, to see a house physically before they actually make the move to buy it. But in terms of filtering down both from the agent's point of view, interested buyers, and from the buyer's point of view, properties that they're interested in, is a massive time saving for everybody to just have a quick look at a property through a video tour. And coming back to Nick's point, you don't want to lose the relationship with your buyers there. So hosting those video tours actually one-to-one, or you can do one-to-many, is still important for the agent to do, to be present in that experience. But nevertheless, it's a huge time saving for everyone. So I think people recognise that and the benefits of it.
I actually had someone say to me that they think that our kids, like the generation of our kids, will expect the properties that suit them to find them.
Yeah.
So, you know, how we retargeted on everything that we do on digital, they're sort of talking about the fact that people will just expect that the properties are going to pop into their feed or pop up in front of them rather than them actively being engaged in the search. And I thought that was a really fascinating conversation.
No, that is fascinating. And actually, I think had the Cambridge Analytica issue not raised its head, then, you know, the likes of Facebook and Google and others would know more about us as individuals. But I think that's going through a bumpy patch at the moment. So how that plays out over the next 10 years or so remains to be seen.
Yeah, true.
And I certainly think in the digital space, I mean, if we take it back a step in regards to not the logistics of actually selling properties, but also the agents themselves. I think one of the things that we've seen certainly in Australia is the rise of the agent or the super agent. So I think certainly the digital space, more so social media, will give agents individually a greater platform to be able to broadcast their message to the public. And I think the thing what we'll start to see is it's not who they know, it's who knows them. And I think social media gives them that wonderful platform to be able to, first and foremost, educate the public with a little sprinkling of promotion in there as well, of course.
And I think, Doug, it's an interesting point, because we'll probably go right around the loop and back to square one, because, you know, how do you as a small independent get cut through the noise of all of the other independents sending out the same messages and using the same channels? And it goes back to, well, actually, if you've got a big national brand, as Leanne was talking about before, that can take care of that consistent marketing to allow those local agents the time and space to really connect with their local audience, then that's always going to be the thing that works the best. So it'd be interesting to see if everyone moves towards this kind of, it's all about me as an agent and this is my social media, this is what I've got to tell you, and I'm on LinkedIn giving you advisory messages and whatever else it might be. It just becomes noise and it gets lost.
Could you all, can I ask you to sum up, to give us each one key takeaway that, you know, our audience can use and remember in terms of this tension we're discussing between local expertise and national brand?
Well, I think certainly if you're looking, if you are a local agent and you feel like you need to be part of a brand because of all the benefits that it brings you, then you really need to make sure that the brand that you choose to be with aligns with your values and your direction, because there's lots of different brands out there. So it's really important to make sure you're aligning with someone who is like you, that you feel it feels like home to you.
Yeah. And for us, it's always been about, you know, if you want to start your own business in agency, then we always say franchising is the best way to go because we're a franchisor, of course. But the reason being is we take care of all of the business noise and all of the distractions to allow our franchisees time to connect and nurture with their prospects, whether that's a buyer or a seller, because that's where they earn the cash. That's where they have the skills to add value, and they don't need to be worrying about marketing campaigns, collateral design, website design, technology, telephony support. They don't need to worry about that. But if you're an independent, you do. And you have less time, therefore, to speak with your prospects. So that's, for us, the key thing that we focus on.
And Douglas, what would be your main key takeaway from this?
Well, I'll actually go into bat for some of the independents as well, actually, because obviously, you know, we're a large real estate group ourselves, but, you know, obviously different horses for different courses, or different strokes for different folks. And I think at the end of the day, it's about what suits you best. As Nick and Leanne have just alluded to, you know, if you want I suppose the reassurance of a national brand, it will give you that gravitas. But you may want to do your own thing. You may want to be unique. And one of the things about national brands is that they don't necessarily always give you that same level of autonomy or flexibility. So I think it's all about balance. balance and what works for who, really, because one size genuinely doesn't fit all.
No, I'd agree with that.
I think localness gives you authenticity, but brands give you a credibility, and it is a blend of those two things.
Agreed.
I really want to thank you guys for this very interesting discussion, and I'm sure that you could continue for hours, but unfortunately I have to stop you right there. And thank you so much for joining me in the studio today.
Thanks.
But you can leave us because we have more to come. For the next session, we'll discuss with the CMO what the modern home owner expect from agencies. You don't want to miss that. So, welcome back. For our next session, we have a new keynote speaker. It's Carl-Johan Troedsson from Block. Welcome, Carl-Johan.
Thank you, Emma.
How are you today?
I'm great. How are you?
Very good, thank you. So, tell us a little bit about who you are.
Yeah, so I'm head of marketing at Block and responsible for the long-term marketing efforts of the company.
Okay. And what is it that you're going to talk about today?
Today I'm going to talk about what a modern homeowner expects from agencies going forward.
Okay, and can you give us a little bit of a tease from your presentation?
Yeah, of course. We think flexibility and availability are two important points going forward.
Okay, interesting. Well, the stage is yours. We're very excited.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Hi and welcome. Today I'm going to talk about what a modern homeowner expects from agencies. And I believe we're in the midst of a technical revolution. We've already become interconnected cyborgs of sorts, with our phones and computers being extensions of ourselves. And now we're limited by the slow interface of text and speech. This graph is often brought forward by proponents of exponential technology development, and it shows how the number of transistors per chip has consistently doubled approximately every 18 months since the early 1970s, and it still holds today, coined by one of Intel's co-founders, Moir. And looking at this on a linear scale, it's even more dramatic. We're, of course, also on the cusp of another general purpose technology in AI, with China and US vying who will become the world leader. The Economist stated in 2017 that the world's most valuable resource is no longer oil, but data. And in industry after industry, we see innovative incumbents and new players redefining what can be done. Here are just a few examples. Now, I'd argue that these developments are to a great extent on the terms of their customers and has led to better products and better services. The question is, of course, what happens when trends like this meet rather traditional agency businesses. Businesses famous for asymmetric information and transaction costs. And in light of this, what will the modern homeowner expect from agencies going forward? We believe transparency is a key point. This can take different forms. At Block, we have a valuation algorithm. You can see the value of your home based on data and statistics in less than 2 minutes. And that's, of course, very valuable to have that independent estimate as you're buying or selling a home. Since 2017, over 470,000 digital valuations have been performed. We believe availability will be even more important going forward. At Block, we've built dashboards for both buyers and sellers, facilitating communication through the customer journey. Flexibility, a third important point, which we think the modern homeowner will expect. Here we have 3D showings. That's one example. You can view homes before or after a physical showing, and why not take measurement to see how you will furnish your new home? I believe modern homeowner expects agencies to be above average and for all processes to be smooth. And here we think marketing automation can play an important role. Now, all of these points are very much points which are expected, but I believe the modern homeowner going forward will expect the unexpected. Now, Steve Jobs said famously, it's really hard to design products by focus groups. A lot of times, people don't know what they want until you show it to them. We had an idea for a novel data-driven product last year. What if you could find and buy the home of your dreams without having to manually refresh housing platforms like Hemnet and Netovi, all who sleep over bidding wars? Today, Block Scout is the clear market leader when it comes to buying assignments in both Finland and Sweden, and we see great organic growth and great traction. Through Block Scout, you can find and buy the home of your dreams without having to compete with others. So you get exclusive access to almost all homes in Helsinki and Stockholm. You can view, search and play bids all for free and only pay when you commit to a deal. It's a revolutionary way to buy a home. Economist Stephen Levitt, he has written that when there are big rewards to people who make and get them right, and there's zero punishment for people who make bad predictions because they're immediately forgotten, that's a recipe for getting people to make predictions over and over. Now I believe that agencies who embrace uncertainty and focus on real customer value, then everything else will fall into place. And all in all, the future has never looked brighter. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Carl-Johan, and welcome back.
Thank you, Emma.
How do you feel now?
I'm very happy. I think this is a great initiative and very happy to be part of it.
You talked about, I don't know if that was the actual wording, but you talked about a tech revolution. Could you describe that a little further?
Yeah, I think technology redefines the way we work, the way we live, and technologies like artificial intelligence, and obviously, as I showed, more slow and how computing power has evolved is truly transformative.
But do you think that it's also a revolution within your industry?
Yeah, I don't know if any of the other speakers spoke about this, but I think there are seismic shifts in the years to come. And I think it will very much be on the customer's terms. A lot of things around us are, of course, on demand today. You can order a taxi, it's one click, etc. And I think this is great for the industry. I think it's great for customers.
I think that if we were here 3 years ago, we would have said the same. Do you think the industry is kind of, are they already behind? That's not only for real estate, it's for every industry, I would say. What's your opinion?
I think people generally are quite bad at predicting the future.
That might be it.
I think, we might be further ahead in 3 years. We might be further back. I think it depends on where we are and kind of our vantage points, how we view it.
You also mentioned that we should expect the unexpected. What would you say from 5 years from now, what is your best guess that the unexpected actually is?
I don't think I can say what the unexpected is. But I think a product like Block Scout, which we launched, that's basically creating a new category, using data, using technology, and creating something completely new. I think initiatives like that we will see more of going forward.
Well, thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
This was truly insightful. Stay online for our next session, which is a success story with Kenny. So for our next session, we have a success story. And here with me in the Stockholm studio, or really online, is Kenny from California. Welcome, Kenny.
Hi, guys.
Hi, how are you today?
Pretty good.
Pretty good.
It's 7 a.m. here. It's still dark out, so it's kind of strange.
Okay, I get it. Yeah, we're in different time zones for sure. So can you tell us a little bit about who you are?
Sure. So Kenny Trung, I go by Kenny Fast. I operate a team called Team Fast at eXp Realty. We're the #1 sales team at eXp Realty, the brokerage with 65,000 agents across the world.
Okay, that's pretty cool. So what you're here to tell us about how to become a successful agent. What are your secrets?
It's, right now, I think things change over time. Right now, it's not just working hard, but working smart, using a lot of systems, technology to automate the process, and building your digital brand online is very key. Right now in the market, at least in the States right now in the US, you're either paying a referral fee to a lot of companies spending a lot of money marketing, or you're investing in your own brand and marketing. I think are the main things right now in the business.
But could you elaborate a little bit more about how you use digital and how the digital development has had a key role in your success?
Yeah, I'll probably give you the example specific to myself. I usually have a Fast Agent brand thing behind me, but I turned it off for now. But the Fast Agent brand I built about 8 years ago is plastered across. It was at one point like 100 billboards, bus benches across the city of Oakland. It's on all of our flyers, our social media posts, email marketing, video marketing, and that brand has now evolved into the Team Fast Real Estate brand that my entire team uses. So we're probably the most recognizable team in these. I work in the San Francisco Bay Area. We're probably the most recognizable team from our online presence, and we've helped our agents build their own brands, but also align with ours using our logos. It's just one example.
Really? What do you think that other agents in your area, but also globally, can learn from you? How to become more successful? What can they learn from you?
I mean, it's like watching presentations like this with other agents and really seeing what systems you're using and integrating it a bit by bit at a time. Right now we're using things like Sisu, Chime, moving on, Follow Up Boss, Optum, partnering up with Adfenix are just some of the tools that we're able to use to help our scale our business.
Okay. So you're using a set of different digital tools. Do you think that, is this something that, other agents are failing in doing, or are you doing it in a different way or with a different strategy?
I think not a lot of agents using the level of tools we are. Like one big thing is kind of like AI chatbots. So we're using a tool called, example, like Ewemove, which does digital retargeting ads to drive them back to our property websites. And then when there's engagement, the system will automatically text them. Our CRM, Chime CRM, also does the same thing. When new leads come in, it's gonna immediately start a chat with them. It's pennies on the dollar to talk to these clients versus spending your own, man hour and picking up the phone and calling these clients right away. So a lot of that is things that agents aren't doing. That's going to help speed the process and get you in front of the client, when they're ready, a lot faster and cheaper than, manually doing it yourself.
Okay. But these digital tools are this something that's specific for your area, or is this something that agents can learn from globally?
Globally, there's certain tools that we use that's specific to our, in the US, our IDX feeds, our property websites, but there's lots of similar properties and copycats out there for the type of tools. So probably more focused, it's more on the type of tools like this chatbot, like this digital retargeting strategy versus the actual brand that we're using.
Would you say, because we've had, we're talking to different experts and different people from your industry around the globe, and they all say that, they work, or they seem, for me, who's not in real estate, it seems like people are working very, very hard. Would you say that these digital tools is helping you to work smarter compared to?
Oh, yeah, much so. It's like, a lot of these tools kind of cut out a lot of think of it like playing golf, rather than you trying to hit, a birdie every single time, you're putting, you're having these tools put the ball closer to the hole for you. So when it's time to actually swing, you're not spending as much effort on it. Especially if you're running a sales team, it's harder to hold agents accountable and teaching them every single process. You want to make their jobs as easy as possible for them to execute at a high level.
Yeah. But you have many years of experience. What would you say is, what is the main difference now compared to when you started building your success?
The harder part before was, I think, a lot of like just building your own brand. Like in my market, I was the first agent to get an IDX feed. This was 10 years ago when Zillow and Redfin and Trulia came out, which are big giants now. But before, there wasn't any websites where you can actually like look for homes. And we were posting things on Craigslist. There's no feeds. And then you have to kind of design your own colors, your brand, your website. There wasn't any all-in-one solution or all like big box CRMs, which had texting and calling, all that. So a lot of it before was piecing all the things together to create a toolkit and branding yourself. But now I think we moved into an era where the tools are so good at your disposal that we can sign up and you can have the same tools that my entire team is using by tomorrow if you choose to sign up. But now we've moved more into like a social media influencer world where you don't need to have as much creativity. I'll take a step back, but at least like a couple years ago, you didn't have to have much creativity in your design and look. You can just have really high quality photos and, buy likes and stuff like that. But now we're moving into an era again, where things are, people are much more authentic and real. No pun intended, but now like a lot of my agents are on Instagram getting business from Reels and doing TikToks. And now it's very personality based video marketing that's helping agents succeed. So new agents can come into the marketplace with very little experience, and within a couple of years become a very, very, high producer in the market with the right type of video content.
Oh, that's really cool. Would that be like for a young up and coming agent? What would be your key piece of advice to him or her?
Do more video that's educational, unique, really understand what's popular in culture right now and take those pieces with you. I'll give you an example. You go to like kennychong.com. I haven't done this in a couple of years, but I have about 6 years of email newsletters I used to do based on pop culture every single week. I stopped doing that a couple of years ago, but now knowing what's the hottest thing right now, what's trending, and then copying those memes and the styles, you're able to drive a lot of traffic to your websites or your page because TikTok, Reels, and all these websites are always prioritizing people who are new to using technology at a high level, even though it hasn't been mainstream adopted yet. If you're doing that, you get extra boost in traffic to you, and cost is very low if you decide to also turn that into advertisement.
I think this is very inspirational, not only for real estate agents, but also for many other industries that needs to, as you said, do more video and, actually use the digital tools that we have at hand. Thank you so much for your time, Kenny.
Thank you.
Thank you. And next on, we have the quest for attribution with Carl Frederick. So you don't want to miss that either. Thank you. So welcome back for our final session of today. We have a keynote speaker, which is Carl Frederick. Welcome, Carl Frederick.
Thank you very much.
How are you today?
I am fantastic. How are you?
Very good, thank you. Can you tell us a little bit about who you are and why you're here?
Absolutely. So my name is Carl Frederick. I'm the head of the Adfenix Professional Services Department. Fundamentally, what we do is that we're a group of specialists specializing within tracking architecture, digital marketing, and the type of analysis that comes with that, and implementing global best practices across all the customers that we work with.
Okay. You're going to talk about something that's called the quest for attribution. Can you shine some light on what that actually is?
Yes, absolutely. So it's something that I'm obsessive about, and I don't try to hide that, but the quest for attribution is basically connecting a marketing activity towards an economic impact at the end of the activity itself. So you connect the entire journey of why did we make this and what was the return on investment based on the activity that we did.
Okay, that sounds reasonable. We can't wait to hear what you have to say. The stage is yours.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
As I was saying, attribution within the context of digital marketing basically means revealing the chain of events between an activity and the economical impact of the same activity. In its most basic form, this would be creating an ad for a local agent, for example, have people click on that ad, and immediately they would sign up for a free evaluation, for an example. However, in reality, we know that it's much, much more complicated than that, especially within our real estate industry, because the decision cycles, both for buyers and for sellers, are much longer than they are in other industries. Seeing all of this complexity, you might ask yourself now, why is this important at all to look at and have an analysis for? Well, as you're probably aware of, the reality is that most of you have not one activity going on at the same time, but rather tons of different activities going on all in parallel, all being invested resources into. What's challenging about that and how hard it is to accurately measure how these activities work together, what activity brings the most value, what's the synergies in between these activities, and how are we investing resources in each activity to drive real positive impact towards our desired business goal. Well, that brings it to the second point, that working effectively with attribution, it removes the guessing game and makes it possible for you to invest resources into the activities that all work together to generate real, sustainable, analyzable business value effectively over time. And that is basically the short story of why attribution is extremely important, yet very hard to actually do in a correct manner.
Thank you, Carl Frederick.
Thank you.
That was short but sweet.
That's how it should be.
Can I ask you, to what extent do you think that global real estate agencies actually work with any type of attribution or follow that online?
Yeah, it's a very, very simple answer. And the fact is, it's very, very little.
Okay.
I believe.
And why is that?
In my experience, I think the main culprit to why this is particularly down to two reasons, where number one is that the multitude of skills and expertise that you would need in-house or rather externally through a consultant or something similar to actually be able to extract the type of data you need to extract from the different type of systems where that data lives, and it becomes really complicated really quickly.
So it's a shortage of knowledge, really.
I think it comes down to a shortage of knowledge, but there's also a software shortage in this space. And to be fair, I just want to emphasize that I don't think that in terms of a full attribution journey that's being completely revealed and easily accessible, that's not even where we are today. Like there's parts of that journey that still needs to be discovered. I think the main part it comes down to also is that all of these types of data lives in so many different systems, which perhaps brings us back to the issue where you might lack some type of expertise to dig it out from these different systems. But I think the real solution to that would be consolidating all of this into one system where you can easily see how the users behave before they sign up, what type of actions do they take, and then what type of touch points will they get, and then after that, sorry.
No, I'm sorry. But would you say that, because I'm sure that a lot of people that are listening is like, well, that's not really my area of expertise. And then you just, don't dig into it any further. Would you say that it's a necessity that, basically everyone within an organization actually understands the value of this?
It's a very, very valid question. And I think that the right answer to actually, as a good ending note on this, is that asking someone to understand attribution and be able to apply different attribution modeling, I think is asking too much. But what you should have is have someone close to you being able to give you the insights from such analysis. No one needs to know how the sausage is made in this case, but people enjoys the sausage basically. So having someone that can give you the insight saying, this is what we're seeing, this is the action point you should take based on the data that we do have, I think that's absolutely necessary to be on the forefront of digital marketing within the real estate industry going forward from here.
Yeah. So we have reasons to come back to you and to continue the discussion about attribution, even if it's complicated. So thank you, Frederick, and that actually wraps up today. So now you have a lot to think about. Thank you so much.